This program was made possible by the generous support of Frederick W. Scott, Jr., Ann R. Worrell, and the Lumina Foundation.
The economy has changed. Workforce needs have changed. And in the 21st century, skills must change. Higher education is a key to solving these challenges. Lumina Foundation for Education is committed to graduating more students from college, because education beyond high school is the best investment we can make in the future.
And additional support from engaged citizen donors to the Miller Center Foundation from across the nation. The world. Our nation. Education. Society. The Miller Center of Public Affairs at the University of Virginia presents the Miller Center National Debates.
Welcome to the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. and the Miller Center National Debates. I'm Paul Solman, economics correspondent for the PBS NewsHour. With literally lightning speed, the Internet lets us share information and connects with people around the world, down the block. But might the unchecked nature of what's on the Internet be a threat to our society, even to our democracy? Here to debate the issue are four participants with deep and broad knowledge of the subject at hand. Arguing that the Internet may indeed pose a threat to democracy is Farhad Manjoo, a technology columnist for the Internet magazine, Slate. He's also a frequent contributor to the New York Times, Time Magazine, and National Public Radio, and author of True Enough, Learning to Live in a Post-Fact Society. Allied with him, Andrew Keen, a Silicon Valley-based entrepreneur. He's the author of The Cult of the Amateur, How the Internet is Killing Our Culture. Meanwhile, arguing that the Internet is not a threat at all is Jimmy Wales, founder of Wikipedia, the international, collaborative, free encyclopedia on the Internet, and his teammate is Micha Sifry, co-founder and editor of the Personal Democracy Forum, a website and annual conference covering the way technology is changing politics. Welcome to you all, and thanks for being here. Now, before we begin the debate, a bit of background.
Today, 80% of Americans over age 17 say the Internet is a critical source of information. And Americans increasingly rank the Internet as a more important information source than television, radio, or newspapers. Traditional media, with its reliance on editors and its deadline-driven nature, often is seen as biased and not always up to date. On the other hand, information on the Internet, relying on so-called crowdsourcing, is up to the minute, but often without the benefit of having been filtered or fact-checked by editors. As a result, it is sometimes hard to distinguish fact from opinion, or even from fiction. Many suggest the Internet is accelerating disagreements over the most basic facts.
Because you're looking at a straight shooter, America. I tell it like it is. I calls them like I sees them. I will speak to you in plain, simple English. And that brings us to tonight's word. Truthiness. Now, I'm sure some of the word police, the wordinistas over at Webster's, are going to say, hey, that's not a word. Well, anybody who knows me know that I'm no fan of dictionaries or reference books. They're elitist, constantly telling us what is or isn't true or what did or didn't happen. Who's Britannica to tell me the Panama Canal was finished in 1914? If I want to say it happened in 1941, that's my right.
For example, polls say about 20% of Americans think President Obama was not born in the U.S., despite his well-publicized Hawaiian birth certificate. Even Eric Schmitt of Google has said the Internet risks becoming a cesspool of misinformation. So, is democracy threatened by the unchecked nature of information on the Internet? Or do the benefits of technology outweigh the problems? Spreading ideas and democracy around the world is one benefit of the Internet, supporters say. The Internet and other mobile technologies allow people in closed societies to access information and, in the case of Iran, help mobilize opposition forces. But the technology is limited and sometimes can be blocked by authorities. The Internet also can help people form new friendships and associations to share information and opinion. But how deep and how meaningful are these connections? Do they create silos where we only talk to like-minded people?
Any doubts?
When it comes to politics or civil discourse, is it harmful to democracy if we hear only opinions similar to our own and never listen to anything contradictory?
It wasn't your fault. Come on, you coward.
And has this silo effect on the Internet contributed to the level of harsh partisanship that we now see in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country?
And now, of course, truthiness is a word, but on to our debate. Each participant will have a 3-minute opening statement, then we'll move to rebuttals and a wider discussion, which I'll moderate here for about half an hour. The debate will conclude with 2-minute closing statements. Again, the debate resolution: democracy is threatened by the unchecked nature of information on the Internet. Up first, arguing that democracy is threatened, is Farhad Manjoo, technology columnist for the web magazine Slate. Farhad.
Hi, thank you all for being here. And I think that one of the things we all have taken for granted is that as people get more access to information, they'll be more informed, and then they'll make better democratic choices. I want to point out some ways in which I think that's not the case. So I think that Stephen Colbert was onto something when he talked about truthiness. And the basic idea I think that he had sort of spotted is that we humans, all of us, have this innate psychological desire to choose people and choose information that reinforces our long-held beliefs. And there are many, many psychological studies over decades that have proven this. But that didn't matter much in the days of 3 networks and a local newspaper when we had this limited choice for news. Nowadays we have this explosion in choice, and we can basically go wherever we want for news. We can go to our friends, we can get it on Facebook, we can get it from this huge explosion in cable and talk radio. So what happens? I think that one of the things that we're seeing happening is that people are going towards news sources that mainly reflect their own views. A few years ago, there was this interesting study at Stanford where researchers asked people to read various news headlines, and then they wanted to test how news logos affected what stories people would choose. And they found that when they put the Fox News logo on a story, it became much, much more attractive to Republicans. And it didn't matter if it was, you would expect that would happen to politics stories, but it happened on sports stories. People were, had concluded that Fox News was the place that they could trust if they had a conservative point of view. On the other hand, Democrats completely were repulsed by the Fox News logo, and the NPR logo and the PBS logo were attractive to Democrats. So I think that that's one example of how people actually get news these days, and I think it's led to another factor, the news organizations responding to that, which is, as you saw in the piece, one of the things that news organizations can do now is that they can pander to these specific audiences. So I think it's in their financial interest to respond to these niches and target them, and then you have this sort of symbiotic relationship where news organizations tell you what you want and you go to them because they're telling you what you want. And I think that has to be at root one of the causes for many of the completely untrue things we hear in the media these days from all corners. And so that can't be good for a democracy.
Thank you. Now arguing that democracy is not threatened, not surprisingly, Jimmy Wales, founder of Wikipedia. Jimmy.
Great, thank you. So democracy is all about people deciding. It's about people who are passionately engaged,